All right. Thank you guys, everybody, for being here today. We're really excited to be able to bring you this webinar. Welcome to this program of the ASBTDC, Boosting Holiday Sales with Partnership Marketing, presented by Melissa Forziat. My name is Scott Lacey. I work at the ASBTDC. I've been here for a little over 2 years, and I teach small business financial management and small business management to aspiring entrepreneurs and owners. The ASBTDC has a lot of resources for small business owners in all areas of business, and we would love for you to get in touch to set up a one-on-one consultation to see how we might be able to help you start or grow your business. So if you would like to get in touch for any area of business, including what we're going to discuss today, we would love for you to get in touch with us. I've got Melissa Forziat here with us today, who's going to be our program presenter. She is a Southern California-based marketer, speaker, consultant, and author. She teaches small businesses how to market on a budget and helps them execute their marketing strategies, in addition to working with business organizations to train their trainers. She offers keynotes, presentations, workshops, and webinars, and her national and international speaking schedule has taken her as far as New Zealand. To date, she has delivered over 180 workshops and webinars to thousands of attendees. And she's the author of a free ebook called Small Business Marketing on a Budget, and she is also a former board president of Ventures nonprofit. So she's a very qualified and individual, and very lucky to have her with us today. And so Melissa, I'm so glad that you're here, and be happy to turn it over to you now.
Great, thank you for that. Well, first of all, a huge thank you to you, Scott, for being here, and to Julie and Lindsay and Mary Beth and everybody at the ASBTDC who have made this happen. This is the second series that we've started to run across the whole year. So at the end of this, I'll actually tell you the other events that are coming up into next year. But today we're going to talk about boosting holiday sales with partnership marketing. Now, before we jump into any of the content, I see some familiar names, but I also see some new ones. So let me just give you a little bit more on my background to give you some context of why I think this particular material is so important. So I actually started out in my career doing major international sport events. I worked Olympic Winter Games, I worked Rugby World Cup, I worked with the US Olympic Committee. So these are some of the biggest brands, some of the most recognizable brands in the world, and also some of the biggest events as well. And by working with organizations at that scale when I started, I learned a lot about how they did what they did. When you see it happening in a big way, it becomes really obvious what the strategies are. And one of the things that I noticed that all of those organizations did was they built a lot of partnerships, because there was no way that they were going to, by themselves, get the kind of reach that they needed to make something like an Olympic Games work. So I got to see partnerships at a huge scale in that forum. And then 10 years ago, I started my own business. So Melissa Forziat Events and Marketing is a micro business, like I imagine many of you have, and I work mostly with micro businesses. So I had to figure out, how do I take the good principles of marketing that I saw at that huge scale, but make them work for businesses like ours that don't have anywhere near those resources? You don't have the same human resources to, as many people on your team. You don't have the same time, you don't have the same budget, but you still have to be effective with your marketing. And one of the things that really struck me is that partnership marketing, building word of mouth, building a referral network for yourself is something we can all do within our means to be able to expand our reach. And in fact, I think it's one of the smartest things that small businesses can do to really make sure there are allies in the process of growing your business. So that's where this comes from today. This is all about taking a really logical approach. And you're going to find some of this material, especially in the beginning, it starts simple and it builds. And it's really about, even if an idea seems simple to you, are you doing it? Are you actually dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's in your marketing plan? Because if you do some of these things, even coming out of this meeting, you will see that you're going to find opportunities for your business that you didn't even know existed, that were already in your network. So that's what today is all about. And one more thing I wanted to point out, you'll notice the words holiday sales in this title. Some of you may already have been thinking about that, depending on what your business is. Some of you might have gotten started a little while ago with thinking about how to prep for the holidays. For some of us, the holidays is a slow time of year, and it's a really good opportunity to do outreach, but not necessarily a great time for sales. So everybody who's listening in, I'm actually curious, feel free to go ahead and put in the chat, is the holidays, is it a slow time or a really busy time of your year for your business? I'm curious to see who we have where on that spectrum. And I also want to make sure we all know where the chat is, because I'll ask you to use that a few times as we go through. So check to see in the chat if you can reach out to everyone. It might be defaulting to hosts and panelists, but we do want to see if you can get it so that everybody can see your message for later on. And Jessica's jumping in. It's slow, a wedding venue owner. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So far we're hearing one slow, but let me know for anybody else if this is like the most hectic time of year, or if you're like Jessica and me and it slows down a bit during this time of year for you. So as you get those thoughts into the chat, I'm going to go ahead and give a few quick housekeeping items on this before we jump into any material. So first of all, although everybody's on mute, I do want to make sure you're able to really focus in on this material. This is the kind of information that if you're thinking about your business as we're going through it, you will get more from the session. So just make sure that if you have anything going on in the background that's distracting you, that you take a moment now to turn that down. So maybe silence your phone. If you have a messaging device on, go ahead and shut that off. Just find a way to limit your distractions as much as you can so you can focus in here. Now, the material itself, you're going to notice that there are a lot of slides that are going to feel almost like exercises for you, or even like takeaways with a lot of words on them. And that was intended to be a resource for later. So I have pulled together all of the slides and some additional resources onto a landing page of my website that I'm going to give you a link for at the end. So if you feel like you're rushing to take notes, just know that you're going to have access to the slides, those resources, and probably this video as well, right, Scott?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so everybody will get access to the video as well. So don't feel like you have to really rush to take notes. And then lastly, in terms of questions, this presentation is going to work just a little bit differently from some of the other ones that I've done if you've seen me present before. So this is going to feel a little bit more workshop-y at times. There's going to be a time or two where I throw an exercise over to you as a group, and it'll be a great time for you to get into the chat and start interacting, or to work independently during some of those times. So I'll prompt you when that happens. I'll take questions for the most part at the end, and you're going to find that this material builds quite a lot. So we'll start with some simple ideas, and we're going to keep adding detail to them so that you can keep expanding your reach. And so those are the housekeeping items I wanted to address. And I'm just noticing a couple other people responding in the chat here. Anthony saying we ramp up. It's an entertainment booking agency. They're in business startups, so you're not really sure what the holiday season will be, as it will be directly after the time I try to launch. So it's going to be a little bit of a mystery for you this year, Darren, and we're going to try to find some regularity in that as you move forward. But that's what it is like early in business. It's, you know, the toughest part is figuring out what momentum you're going to have. So we have a little bit of a mix here. We also have Taylor, who it's a busy time in healthcare. Okay, so we have a real mix here, and I encourage you to think about the timing that you need with everything that I suggest today, based on when you feel like you'll have the available time to give. So here's what we'll cover today. First, we're going to talk a little bit generically about the holidays and your marketing plan, just to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about as we go through. Then we're going to start getting into some techniques. We're going to talk about word of mouth marketing, or I might also call it referral marketing at times. Then we're going to talk about finding business allies for your business. So word of mouth marketing, the referral marketing piece, is going to be a little bit more about the people already in your network. Finding business allies for your business is going to be about building partners among businesses in your community or outside of your community that you may not already know. And then once you have all that information, we'll talk about what to do with it. How do you collaborate when you found a partner? So those are some of the things that we're going to tackle today. And if all that sounds good to you, let's jump in and talk about boosting holiday sales with partnership marketing. Okay, first things first. the holidays, and your marketing plan. Now, of course, as we can already see in this chat, everybody starts thinking about the holiday period for their business at a different time. Some people may be thinking about it as early as August or September. For some of us, we know things will ramp down and get slower. And so it gives us a different cadence to the year. But at some point, you want to think about how you can leverage the holidays in your marketing plan, because I think we all can in some way. Now, one thing that I like to be able to do here is sort of redefine the idea of marketing for all of us, because I hear a lot of things about how small businesses often use marketing, especially when you've got a lot of things to do. Like, so many of us are wearing multiple hats for our business. So, you know, if you get to a busy time of year, you would love to market, but you've also got all these other things pulling your attention away. So, you know, in terms of things I commonly hear from business marketers, it's this idea that they might market later, right? Like, I'm going to work on the stuff that's really a hot button item right now, and then I'll get back to marketing when I can. And that could happen because they're so busy that they don't feel like they have the bandwidth to do marketing. It could feel like you don't need to market because you've got all these clients or customers that are coming in this moment. There could be a lot of reasons for this. But the reality is that marketing is an all the time activity. And if you're able to find ways to find that consistency, and if you're able to find ways to sort of build in a little bit of marketing all the time, and know what it looks like for you to market when you are busier, when you don't have as much bandwidth. What are the things that absolutely, like the bare minimum that absolutely has to keep running? And then what are the things that you can do at the times when you do need to ramp up? So I think having an idea of what that looks like before you head into those busy periods really helps, because you're able to then say, okay, I'm going to the part of the plan where I'm just keeping it maintenance mode. I'm staying in front of the people that know me so that I stay top of mind with them. I'm doing just a little bit to try to get in front of some new people. Marketing isn't all the time. So if you find that you're sort of quieting down in terms of your messaging at the times when you're busy, when in reality, you probably have the most things that you could say and the most content that you could share because you're having all of these experiences for your business, then you may find, if you quiet down during those periods, that you're going to have that feast and famine cycle that a lot of people experience. And that can be really difficult, right? You don't want to have a busy period of time for your business, have a totally quiet time right on the back of it if that wasn't your intention. So again, marketing is an all the time activity. And I will say that the holidays can play a very important role in that. Now, if the holidays for a business like yours is the busiest time of the year, you might shift this idea into like immediately following the holidays into the new year. If the holidays is a quieter time, you can spend a whole month doing outreach around the holidays. So it's really about taking this idea and sort of shifting it to where you have the bandwidth and the space. Now, why are the holidays important? Well, they factor in quite a few different ways. So let's talk about that. Now, reward and acknowledge strong relationships. That's something that you can do when the holidays rolls around. I'm a big believer, and I'm going to say this up front, I'm a big believer in making a nice long list of everybody you want to reach for your business during the holidays. I actually take quite a lot of time to do that myself, where I'm really making a laundry list of every client that I've worked with, major partners that I have, anybody that I want to stay on the radar of. And I'm thinking about how I want to stay in front of them, what I want to say, because the holidays is a great time to reach out. Well, one of the things that I'm looking for is, are there people who have been really good to me through the year in some way that I can acknowledge in some way, that I maybe reward? It depends on what your budget is and what that looks like in your business, but even just acknowledgement in any form can make a big difference. And the thing that I really like about that is that by acknowledging people, you're really priming them to want to do it again in the year ahead. So rewarding and acknowledging people who have been good to you in your business is one place to start. And again, I would make an actual literal list of this, because you might find there are quite a lot of people that you want to add into your holiday messaging plan. And this is a way to keep track of who gets what kind of message. Now, Another way the holidays can factor in is this is a good time to start rekindling lapsed relationships. And it's a really good time because you're not putting pressure on it. If you reach out to somebody that you haven't heard from a while, maybe it's a client or a customer that used to be really good, and for some reason the communication has dropped off or you haven't heard from them in a while. If you reach out and say happy holidays, there aren't a lot of people who say unsubscribe me when somebody says happy holidays. You know, it's a well wish, it's a message of goodwill that you're sending. And so that can be a really good time just to kind of get back in front of somebody and let them know you're still thinking about them, maybe even asking for an update on how they're doing, just to get a conversation going. And, you know, there doesn't have to be a significant ask. There doesn't have to be a call to action in a message like that, which is why it can be an easier entry point for rekindling that lapsed relationship. Now, another thing that the holidays can certainly do is create brand awareness. There's so many different ways that you can use the backdrop of the holidays to start doing more messaging, both directly to people and across any like sort of blast marketing tools that you have as well, where you're positioning your values within your brand. What do you want to say to recap the end of the year, or what you want to start the next year? You know, there's this huge opportunity to do year in review and goals for the year ahead in your voice, in your values, and to thank the people who publicly who have been part of the process for the last year. And that's another way for you to just keep getting your brand out in front of people at a time when they may be winding down. But again, if you can do it embedded in a holidays message, that's a time when people are more likely to receive that goodwill and look for messages that are more about the brand awareness than about the call to action themselves. Now, one more element that I want to point out here is the holidays actually factor in as a way to start generating referrals buzz. And this is, to me, sort of a byproduct of doing some of those other first three things, because if you're getting back in front of people and you're sending nice messages and you're saying what you're up to and you're checking in on how they're doing, you are getting back on their radar or staying on their radar in a way that may make them want to think about you moving forward. Maybe you come up in a holiday conversation that they're having around the dinner table. Maybe maybe they just think of you as they prep for the year ahead. In whatever way, you're planting the idea of your business in their mind, and that's somebody who could potentially refer you later, whether or not you've overtly asked for it at that point. It's just staying in front of them and staying connected. So those are some things that that the holidays can do, that you can really build that into your plan and how you're doing your outreach. And to me, effective marketing involves relationship building. For me, relationships are at the absolute center of all the marketing that we do. And you're going to find that everything we talk about tactically in this session today is leveraging this idea that relationships are the foundation of your marketing. It may seem obvious for me to say that, but not everybody approaches marketing in that way. For example, some people take a more quantitative approach. Okay, if I reach 1,000 people with my message, and if I reach them twice, I'm going to get 2% of those people who immediately take me up on my offer. So how many people do I need to reach to get to the number I need? And so some people take a really numbers-based approach to marketing. And look, that can work. But I'm a believer that if you're going to reach 1,000 people and you can get 2% of them after 2 messages, well, can you increase the percentage you get after 5 messages, right? So it's like, do you have to get a brand new list every time? Do you have to discard the people who didn't immediately say yes in search of more people who will? So for me, can you stay in front of that list longer? Can you stay in front of those individuals longer, build a stronger relationship, and over time find that more of them say yes? That's the approach I like to take. I believe that's a more efficient approach for a lot of us small business owners to take, because we aren't necessarily in a position to waste leads. If you spent money or time to meet somebody to begin with, why not just reach out to them 2 more times if that's going to potentially help convert more of those people? So that is ultimately the philosophy that I bring into this talk. And if you understand that relationships are the center of marketing, we're going to look today at all the ways you can build them. Now, having said that, let's start getting into some of the more tactical approach. And I will say that starting out with this section, some of these things may seem really obvious to you, and yet if you can do them, if you can really sit down and make sure you've exhausted doing these tips, you're probably going to find that there are people in your network already who are going to be great momentum builders for your business. So I want to start by opening up a question to all of you. Go ahead and put your answers in the chat. Again, hopefully we can have it so it's set so that everyone can see your answers, not just the hosts and panelists. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much work are you doing to generate referrals? I'm not even going to define what that means yet. We'll talk about that in a bit, but however you interpret that, on a scale of 1 to 10, about how much work are you doing to generate referrals? 1 would be not very much. It's not something you spend much time thinking about. 10 would be, I spend every waking minute thinking about how to get people to start referring my business and talking about my business. And, it can really be anywhere in between. There may be a couple people here who are pre-launch. And so this question may or may not feel like something you're able to answer, but let's get a sense of the people that we have here alive with us. But where do you sit on this list? Already we're seeing a spectrum here. So we've got Anthony jumping in and saying about a 7. Darren is saying about a 3, still startup, not quite off the ground yet. Rotunda's going to go straight down the middle, 5. Raven's saying 7. Awesome. So we do have a spread. We're staying in that sort of safe range in the middle here. Kate is saying about a 6. So it sounds like so far, most of us see some room for improvement, and hopefully I give you some tips today that'll help bump you up to 8s and 9s and 10s. And for those of you who are just getting started, we're going to come up with some ways for you to start building that strategy into your marketing plan. So with all of that said, I want to make a point here that, you don't have to wait for word of mouth marketing to come to you. It doesn't have to be something that's passive. A lot of times business owners say to me, Melissa, I think word of mouth is the best type of marketing. And it can be, it certainly can be. And it's something we all hope for and we strive for. But I think sometimes people say that to me because they think it's a type of marketing they don't have to do. Like, oh, it was this wonderful surprise. Somebody just came into the shop today or dropped into my email inbox and said, oh, I heard about you from this other person. And it was what a wonderful thing that was. Didn't have to do anything to make it happen. Sometimes it does happen that way. But if you really want word of mouth marketing to be something that's a machine that's rolling for your business, you can be proactive. You can be planting seeds. You can be having conversations with people to try to create the momentum for word of mouth marketing. And you'll probably get a lot more of it if you do that. So this doesn't just have to be something that's a happy accident. It can be something that you plan for and that you build into. And that's what we really want to do, because everybody in your community can ultimately help share your story. All the people that you've been working to build relationships with in your business could potentially be some form of brand ambassador for you, whether or not they're like a card carrying member and they're thinking of themselves in that way. Everybody who's had an experience with your business could potentially talk about your business. So what experiences are you giving them? What language are you giving them that they can talk about, that they can use when they're referring your business to other people who may not have heard about you yet? Well, if we want to be proactive in doing this, there are 3 keys to successfully building referrals. And these are all small details, but they add up and they're big. And this first one is a really big deal. So number 1, if you want people talking about your business, what message do you want them to be spreading? This is where the idea of having a controlled message becomes really important. Now, what is a controlled message? Well, let me give you a little story here. So I told you up front that I started out in my career working major international sport events. And like one of the jobs that I had there, when I worked in Vancouver, I noticed they always had these really long, fancy job titles. So like in Vancouver, I was the deputy manager of venue press operations for the Vancouver Organizing Committee for the Olympic Winter Games. That was my literal title. All of those words were in my title. And if I was talking to somebody in that world and I told them what my job title was, I knew exactly, we all knew exactly what that meant. They knew what I did, they knew who I did it for, and they also knew if their job related to mine in some way, like if we sat down, what would we talk about that would advance both of our work. But when I was outside of that world, I noticed, for most people, it's just a jumble of words. And it was so much stuff to say. If I asked you to repeat back to me right now without kind of scrolling back in a recording and looking for it, if I asked you to repeat what I said, chances are most of you wouldn't be able to pick out what I actually said. And so what I tended to notice was that when I was visiting family and friends or anybody that knew me at the time when I was working jobs like that, they would, if they were introducing me to somebody else, the introduction would go something like this. They'd say, oh, here's Melissa. She's the, and they'd fill in the blank with a lie. Every single time they told a version of what I did that was not accurate. Sometimes like a little bit not accurate, and most of the time really, really far off the mark. And, I would have people introduce me, for example, as an Olympic gymnast, because they knew that I used to do gymnastics and they could remember the word Olympic and they would smash them together and they decided that's what I did. But I was never an Olympic gymnast. I wasn't that good a gymnast, to be honest. I mean, I competed for a long time, but Olympic gymnast, this was a really serious thing. That was a dream. Didn't achieve it, but that's how I was very often introduced, and it had nothing to do with my work life whatsoever. So it was always interesting to me to hear how it would come out when people started to try to introduce me on their own. Before they would look over to me and ask me for help, you could kind of hear, I noticed that they kept coming up to the same keywords. A lot of people could drop the word Olympic. A lot of people would remember the word deputy because that was something that really stuck out to them in my job title. A lot of people most people would remember the city name of where I was working. Those were some things that people would remember those words, and then they would like fill in the blanks and make up the rest to make it make sense to them. And then it was the weirdest game of telephone because how they had interpreted it and what they had said, now the listener was interpreting what they were hearing. And before you knew it, we were really far off of what I actually did for a living. So this was an interesting experiment, an unintentional experiment that I observed where I was seeing, okay, word of mouth is interesting, but boy, if somebody heard that introduction that was wrong and they were excited about it, now the very first thing that I have to do is correct the misinformation to see if they're still interested. That's really awkward. That's a rough place to start in a new relationship. And it's embarrassing for the person who made the introduction too, if they find out or hear that you're making that correction. On the flip side of that, if somebody hears the introduction and they're not that interested in what they heard, now I'm wondering, would they have been if they actually got the right information? I may or may not ever have an opportunity to correct the misinformation. Maybe the introduction happened in front of me, but a lot of times it doesn't. So it's important, if word of mouth is going to happen for your business, that it's as close as possible to what you want people to actually be saying about what you do. And so knowing what you want them to say is the first step in that process. And the question becomes, how can you condense the essence of what you do in a way that they'll remember? Now, this is the tricky part. I imagine a lot of you have heard of things like elevator pitches or mission statements or wow statements. There's a lot of different ideas out there for how we can talk about what we do. And I want to come at you with a different idea here. I want to come at you with the idea that as much as you can craft this beautiful, polished 10 seconds, 20 seconds worth of language about what you do, people don't remember a lot. So how can we get a really simple keyword filled message to them that'll make them want to ask more if they want more information, or can stand alone as a message they can repeat if they don't get more information. And for me, this is what I call a controlled message. So for example, if you asked me what I did, I would answer, I help small businesses market on a budget. If you can remember small businesses, market, budget, you know what I do. And yeah, there's a lot more detail I can give to that. There's a lot of forms that takes. But if I say I help small businesses market on a budget, you know basically what I do and who I do it for. And I try to keep it as simple as I possibly can so that people can remember it. Now, if I get 10 seconds with somebody to answer this question, if somebody says to me, Melissa, what do you do all day? I will just say, I help small businesses market on a budget. And I might look to see if their eyes light up or dim. You know, if they light up, okay, keep talking, ask questions, see what they're interested in. If they don't seem that interested, move on to the next conversation, right? But if I start with that, I help small businesses market on a budget. Now I've at least planted the controlled message once. If you get more time with somebody, so let's say you get 30 minutes to talk about something, or a whole day, or you keep seeing them regularly, keep peppering in your controlled message. But now you have an opportunity to give them more language, more stories, more experiences for them to hook onto. But again, keep peppering in the controlled message, because at the end of the day, what you want people to remember is something like, I help small businesses market on a budget, but your version of that. And so you want to create that pattern in their brain. When we create a pattern in somebody's brain, that their brain starts doing the marketing work for us. It's like if a jingle has ever gotten caught in your head. Have you ever had that experience? You heard a commercial for some company and you were like singing it to yourself or whistling it all day. That's kind of genius, right? Because now they dropped that jingle once or however many times, and now your brain is carrying on their marketing work, whether you like it or not. So this is what we want to be able to do as small business owners. And sometimes it takes a little bit of, smart creativity in how to plant those seeds and how to get there. The first step of this is making sure you know what your controlled message is. So what I would like to do here, this is a really important step for us to be able to use later on in this conversation. And I want to make sure everybody has a controlled message of their own to start with. So go ahead. We're going to take maybe about 5 minutes here where I'm just going to be quiet and let you do this exercise. Here's what I want you to do. Create your controlled message, which ultimately, okay, so put your business name at the top, but then what you're looking for is a sentence, a short sentence with maybe 4 to 7 keywords. The shorter, the briefer, the better. If you can include the target market in it, great. Make sure it's a sentence. So for example, if you were a landscaper, I don't want to list like trees, shrubs, hedges, grass. Nobody will be able to remember your list. You want it to be the completion of a thought, a full sentence. So for me, when I say I help small businesses market on a budget, there's a chance somebody's brain could lock on to that pattern of that sentence. And that's ultimately what you want for your business as well. For some of you, you may already kind of know what your controlled message is. For some of you, this might take a few minutes. So I'm going to be quiet here. I'm going to give it about 5 minutes. And then we'll jump in and see how people are doing as we get a few minutes in. So I'm going to put myself on mute here for a few minutes. If you have a question about how to do this exercise, feel free to put this into the chat so I can address it and make sure you're still moving forward. So again, we'll jump back in about 5 minutes after everybody's had a chance to create theirs. if you're still working, I'm still going to give you a couple more minutes, but if you are at a if you're at a good place with this, if you feel like you're done, go ahead and pop into the chat and just say done or something like that, so I can get a sense of who's still working. Okay, I know there might be a few people that are still working on it, and that's okay. Keep sort of fine tuning as I talk, because what I'm going to do is a section from now, I'll give it a little time. I'll ask you to write your controlled message in the chat again, your finalized one or your finalized, as close as it is to finalized. At that point, as you know, anybody who wants me to read them aloud, I'll do a guided networking process. So I know many of you put yours in the chat earlier. I saw a couple people were tweaking it as they went. So I'll, at that point, I'll ask for people to put their controlled messages in the chat if they want to one more time. And we'll do that then to make sure we've got sort of the most final version for everybody. So for now, thank you all so much. It's also really helpful to see where you are with your controlled messages for those who did put them in the chat as we went. And I just wanted to put a finer point on this. For some of you, this might have been right at your fingertips, right? This might have been something that was really simple and easy for you to put together. For some of you, this might have taken a little more thought. And the more thought it takes you, imagine how much more complicated that makes it for your audience to know what to say about your business. So before we can move on from your controlled message, you have to know what it is, because this is going to be the root idea of how you make introductions of your business moving forward, going through the rest of the presentation. But you have to know this part first. So hopefully we all have a bit of a foundation in that now. And that brings me to a couple more keys for building referrals. So the second key being be the catalyst. Use your controlled message. Now, what does this look like? So for me, this looks like building a list of everybody I know. And the holidays can be a really good time to do that when you're doing outreach, because it's a chance to sort of revisit who you've met across the whole year. But however and whenever you do this, the idea is identify all of your contacts seriously. Go through everybody that you've met. And that list is going to shift from year to year because you might be meeting more people. So there'll be new people to add along the way. But if you were to start that exercise right now, go back through all of your contact lists, all of your address books. I often find that it's easiest to start building this list by thinking of where I know people from or when I knew them from. Who are people that I knew in high school? Who are people that I knew in college? Who are people that I knew at different jobs? People, maybe you're picking up your kids from after school activities, and like, what are some of the people that you've met there? Maybe you go bowling every Wednesday night. Who are some of the people you know there? Are there service providers you work with? Just do that, as much of a laundry list as you can of the people who are already in your orbit or have been. That's where you start. And then once you have that list, Step two is sort of reclassifying it based on how well you know them. So you're probably going to say a lot more about what you do to somebody you're really close with than to somebody you haven't seen in a while. So I find it much easier to take the list of all the names and then sort them into, okay, who are the people that I'm absolutely the closest to? Who are the people that I'm pretty close to, but they're not my best friends or closest family members? Who are the people that are acquaintances? I see them somewhat regularly. We have a good relationship, but we haven't done really deep dives very often. Who are people that you see infrequently or more distant? You may also have a do not contact list, and that is totally fine. I'm not suggesting you contact those people, but it helps to sort the names where they belong. And then once you have that, it makes it a lot easier to reach out. So the people you're really close to, you're probably going to give them a lot of information about what's going on for your business. Whereas, somebody who's more of an acquaintance, well, maybe they get a simple message saying, oh, happy holidays. Here's what I've been up to this year. What have you been up to? And it's just, you keep it really basic. So you'll find that if you've separated people into how well you know them, it might be a little easier to kind of go through and start reaching out. You can do this all around the holidays. You can also do it throughout the year. You can do it at a different time that makes sense for you. But it's this idea that not only are you building the full list, but then you're actually doing the outreach. And I have to say, a lot of times people get uncomfortable talking about their business with personal contacts, and they'll think, oh, I don't want to muddy the water. I don't want to seem like I'm being salesy. It's not salesy if you don't sell, right? So if somebody says, what do you do for a living? And I say, I help small businesses market on a budget. I've sold them nothing. There's no overt ask there. There's no aggressive sales approach. It's just telling somebody what I do all day. And sometimes people want to know more based on me saying that. And so now you can have a conversation and figure out why. Sometimes it's like, oh, you do that? Well, I have a business. I can use help, or I know somebody who needs that help. Or they might come to you with a reason why they're interested in learning more about it. So when you're doing outreach, it's simple enough to say, so I'm so excited about this thing that just happened, or this is what I've been working on all year. It's been a long road, but I'm really happy with where it sits now. How are you doing? And so to get that conversation going, you can say it in a lot of ways that don't feel salesy, but give yourself the possible advantage of meeting somebody already in your network who has a reason to care about what you do and ally with you in some way. So doing that outreach is key. This may seem like the simplest possible slide to put in front of you, right? Like identify your contacts and reach out. That's your marketing plan. You would be surprised how many people in your network currently have no idea what you do for a living. If you start putting it out in front of them, you may find that there are people who are just suddenly see the light, and maybe you wish you would have told them earlier. So, this is something that's not hard to do. It does take time. And then if you do it, you will find that there may be some hidden opportunities there in your existing network. And I will say the holidays is a perfect time for that outreach. If it's a really busy time of year for you, if this isn't the time when you want to get in front of people because you just don't have the bandwidth, find another time that does make sense in the context of your business that you can do something like this. So I will say, a simple tip for holiday outreach or any time of year outreach is to ask, and how are you doing at the end of what you say? So you can say things like, I'm so excited about this thing that happened. I'm so honored by this thing that happened. I wanted to share with you an update on what's going on in my life. And you can mention a few different things. And then at the end of that, you can say, I'd love to hear what you've been up to. And that is what turns it more into a conversation and less into you pitching your business. There are lots of ways to get there. But this is something that you can start testing out and finding the language that feels right for you. Now, the third and final key in this part is the little details, and these make a big difference. So showing gratitude and attention. If there's somebody who could be a good referral source for you, if there's somebody who starts asking you more questions or wanting to know more information about what you do, make sure you've educated them appropriately. Give those people your controlled message. Make sure that's planted in their heads or in an email that they can hang on to. Give them a link to your website. Give them a few business cards if you think they might hand them out. If somebody's going to be a really good referrer for you, maybe give them an experience with your business. Give them a sample, give them a tour, give them whatever you can do so that they can add some texture to what they share about what you do. So that's one step. Now, if somebody actually makes an introduction for you, what's your plan, right? Have a follow-up plan for when new leads come your way. If somebody, how often has this happened, right? Somebody says, oh, they'll send an email and they'll say, oh, you should meet this person should meet you. I'm putting you both in an email. I'm going to introduce you. And then, hey, I'm going to let you two handle it from here. How often does that result in absolutely no conversation whatsoever, right? Like the introduction is made and it's a great time to everybody to step away and be really awkward about it. Well, what was your actual follow-up plan there? Can you get back in front of those people? Can you have a plan for the very first way you want to make contact? Maybe I'll email them today. I'll email them again in a week, and maybe I'll see if we can meet for coffee. That's the goal, right? So what is your actual plan that you want to take those new leads who came from referrals into? Once you know it, you can execute it. If you don't know it, it'll feel like you're reinventing the wheel every single time an introduction is made. And that's where people start falling through the cracks, which is awkward for everybody involved, including the person who made the referral. It doesn't really encourage them to make more referrals if they know that it created awkwardness among people that they already knew. So that's a thing to consider. And once you've gone into your follow-up plan, once you're starting to move forward with that contact, loop back with your referrer, say thank you. Now, a thank you for you might just be a verbal thank you. It might be an email. For some of us, a referral is actually represents a significant amount of revenue in your business. Like if it's a referral that can lead to a lot of revenue, you may want to have a gifting plan. You might want to have an actual thank you gift that gets sent, or a thank you, I'm going to take you out to dinner or something like that. So you have to figure out where this sits in terms of your budget, in terms of, in terms of your bottom line. But when you say thank you in some way, in any way, to the person who made the referral, I have found many times that another referral comes right on the back of that. It's like, oh, was that the right kind of person? Because I just was talking to somebody else recently who had the same need. So you can help even fine tune the types of referrals that they're bringing to you. So these are some things to consider. Again, none of this is necessarily difficult, but it's about actually doing it and making sure you're dotting those I's and crossing T's, because there's probably a lot of potential in your network already that's untapped. So the question is, can we tap into it to build momentum in areas we didn't even know we had? Now, I do want to start talking about what happens when you don't already know the people. There's potential allies for your business out there in the world who don't already know what you do or that you exist. And how can we start building those relationships? So we're moving into this part about finding business allies for your business, which I would also call partnership marketing. Now, partnership marketing is about collaborating with other businesses or influencers for mutual benefit. Partnership marketing is not necessarily about it's not about writing a contract, and it's not about getting into a joint venture. It's not about signing on the dotted line. It's about looking another business owner in the eye and saying, hey, I think we can help each other here. Let's try and see what happens. And when you find good partners, there's so much you can do with them. Not everybody gets this idea, but those that do can be you can be a great benefit to each other's business. So the idea is that you can leverage your relationship with the other businesses and access their communities in the process, and that they're doing the same thing with you because you're looking for mutual benefit here. So we want the win-win relationship to come out of this. Now, there are 4 different categories of partners that I want you to look for out in the world, and I'm going to walk you through these. The first one is compatible businesses or influencers. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to measure compatibility in 2 different ways. So it can be that your offerings are compatible. So like if I make shoes and you make shoelaces, there are probably a lot of ways that we can collaborate together. It may seem kind of obvious. But there are other businesses that don't do exactly what you do that could be great partners and compatible partners because they have a similar target market. So if I reach mothers of 2-year-olds and you reach mothers of 2-year-olds, we can reach mothers of 2-year-olds together, right? And if there are mothers of 2-year-olds in your audience that I've never met before, well, now you've exposed me to new people. If there are people who are that are the same across both our audiences, that's fine too, because we're reinforcing each other's message. So, there's sort of no downside to it as long as you both really do trust each other and you value the way you both do business, then a partnership can go a really long way. Me being on this presentation is a partnership between my business and the ASB TDC, right? So you're seeing this play out right in front of you. Now, I want to get a little more specific on this. It's not this is a different category exactly, but I want to call it out. Businesses don't have to look exactly like yours to be a good partner. But I have found that a lot of times when we're looking at a business that doesn't look exactly like ours, the idea of mutual benefit goes right out the window, and it doesn't have to. So I'm going to give an example here, and not that I'm trying to call out all nonprofits here, but I have found this happen a lot with nonprofit clients where, for example, let's say a nonprofit has a fundraiser coming up. They've got this big event, they want to raise funds, and they go to community businesses, small businesses, corporations, and ask for sponsorship for that event to help offset their costs. So they'll start approaching the corporations and the small businesses, and they'll say, we would love you to sponsor this event to the tune of, I don't know, $500, $1,000, name your price. And very often the response they'll get is, ooh, you know what, you do such great work and we would love to be able to help, but we can only help so many businesses or so many nonprofits at once. And we've got a full plate right now. So, we wish you the best of luck, but we can't help you this year. The number of declinations these nonprofit development directors get on a daily basis is stunning, right? And they just, they kind of have to roll with it. At this point, most nonprofits walk away from the conversation. And here's my question. Why do you have to? If there really is potential for this relationship, why not propose some other way to get mutual benefit that isn't monetary? So for example, at this point, the nonprofit could come back and say, you know what, I totally get it. I'm looking at the list of nonprofits you support, and wow, you do such great work in the community. We do think that there's a way that our businesses can grow together and support each other. So what about this? What if we do a little spotlight on you in our next newsletter and you do the same for us? How about that? Can you get anybody now to say yes to that ask? Or something that seems a little simpler, that maybe doesn't have to do with a budget item? If they say, of the people who say yes to that, now you've got the foundation of a relationship to move forward. Maybe next year you do ask them for that money and they say yes, because now you've started to build something, or at least they're more willing to entertain it. So why not come in with like okay, you say you like the organization and what we do. How about we try something else that's good for both of us? So this is why I say, if a business doesn't look exactly like yours, it's not about you're asking them for something, or, it's about how can we find a way to help each other. And look at it from that standpoint. You're probably going to get more people to pay attention to your messages and to what you're saying to them. Now, here's a third one: hyper-local companies or influencers. Whether or not these businesses are compatible with yours, if they're kind of just in your area, it may be a good idea to plant the seed for this. So I'm going to give you an example of this. So I used to live in Seattle, and for years I volunteered for a local comedy theater and sold box office tickets, couple weekends every month. And so I would man the box office and sell tickets. And there was this one day, just like any other day, I'm in the box office, and up the stairs walked Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher. And I was like, oh my goodness, A-list celebrities in this small business. I could see all the potential of this. So I was like, step one, Melissa, sell them tickets, get them into theater however you have to, right? So I put on all the charm and I got them into the theater. And they loved the show. They laughed till they cried. They took a picture with the cast. It became a bit of a sort of lightning in a bottle situation for that theater. They were getting covered in the local community news, and there was even a national news outlet that was following. It was an entertainment news outlet that was following Mila. And so the owner of the theater got interviewed for like this national entertainment news TV show. And they boosted their posts. They did everything they could to spread this message. And it was this wonderful moment for the theater, got them a lot of local attention, and definitely helped fill the seats for the next however many weekends. But this story almost didn't happen. So we later found out, for a really roundabout angle, that right before Mila and Ashton had walked into the theater at the time that I was selling tickets, they had been a few doors down at the local ice cream parlor, and they asked the person who was scooping their ice cream what they could do in that town on a Saturday night. And the person suggested that they go one town over to check out the locks and the salmon hatchery. It was like almost 10 o'clock at night, and they were suggesting that they leave their town, go one town over. Meanwhile, they're comedians, right? There was a comedy show 3 doors down that the person who was scooping their ice cream just didn't even think of or know of to recommend. So the reason that Mila and Ashton got to the theater in time for me to sell them tickets was that when they walked out of the ice cream shop, they just happened to walk to the right instead of the left. And they eventually landed at the sandwich board for the theater, looked up and walked in. And it was at exactly the right window of time where I was still selling tickets and the show hadn't started yet. If they had done a couple laps around the block, it would have been too late. That is way too much luck, right? So you better believe that since that time, that theater, they've hosted Chamber of Commerce events. They've gifted tickets to every business around them to make sure, hey, have your employees come check out the show because they want people to recommend the show when there's an opportunity. It's not that every person will be an opportunity. You just never know who's going to be a good fit. So hyperlocal companies or influencers, hyperlocal can mean if you have a brick and mortar, it could mean the actual foot traffic, people who can get there in walking distance, could mean people on this side of town. If you're looking online, this might be signaled by zip codes or writing city names, or even, some people will show regional names to try to hook this in. So there's a lot of options, but just make sure people know where you are and what you do. Now, the last one I want to mention here is competitors. For some of you, this may have struck fear into your heart. For some of you, though, as long as you don't have like an antagonistic relationship with a competitor, competitors can be a really good partner, right? They can be a great source of overflow business, of information. You can talk to each other about what's happening in your industry. If you have an industry that has a lot of businesses that do what you do, maybe you carve out a little corner of the market with an ally competitor. So a lot of potential in terms of those competitor relationships. And I will say that, during the pandemic, I saw a lot of forward movement with these competitor relationships. Think about how many industries where we saw competitors reaching across the aisle and talking to each other and saying, how do we keep our industry going through all this? There were some really interesting collaborative relationships that formed during that time. And I hope that'll continue in some form. So again, I'm not proposing partnering with anybody that you have an actively bad relationship with, but don't just cross out a competitor by nature just because you think there's no way. Maybe there's some possible way of like both helping each other in that situation that you can come up with. So having said all that, let's take a minute here for some introductions. Go ahead. I see there have been a couple people who've added some more controlled messages, and we've had some tweaks. So go ahead, if you want me to read your controlled message aloud for all of us to really listen in and look for partners of the people who were here, go ahead now and either retype or copy and paste your controlled message into the chat. I'll give you a moment to do that. This is voluntary. I will read these aloud, which will be recorded because we're recording this for those who do want to contribute. But the great thing is that we're really going to pause on each one and give you all a chance to look to see if any of the people who are here meet one of these 4 categories for your business. Because you're right here. Why not say hello and find a next step with each other? So go ahead and take a moment. I'm going to let these roll in. Even if you've already written yours in, this is a chance for you to write sort of your final one, or as final as it is right now. And then, once I see a few of these come in, go ahead and sort of read each of them and give each one like a moment to breathe so we can all really hear it. But I want to make sure you're done writing mostly before I start doing that so we can really hear each other in the process. And I do see a few of these coming in here, and I love it. So, and if I have any follow-up questions for you as I read them, I'll ask. So just know that. But got a few that are jumping in here. I'm gonna give this another 20 seconds or so in case there are people who are still typing and want to get theirs in to be read. But this is one of my favorite parts, right? Because here we are, we're a bunch of business owners in a space, even if it's a virtual space and you're not looking at each other, you can meet each other here. Every time you're out and about meeting small businesses, you can be looking for partners. And so this is just a chance to get started and to get practicing with it. And I want you to be able to take this out into the world where you are surely going to encounter possible partners across the course of a year. Awesome. So I have a few in here, and I'm going to start reading the ones that I do have. I've got, I think, 3 so far. And so if anybody else wants to jump in, feel free to do that. But what I'm going to do here is I'm putting this list up. Now, what you're going to see here, this is actually one of the one-pagers that's on that landing page on my website that I mentioned. This is like a reference document. So down the road, if you're out and about and you're networking, maybe just like bring this with you until you've committed it to memory. Pretty soon, this is going to be second nature for you. It's trying to think through this rubric of who could be a good partner for you. But for now, I'm just putting it up on the screen. What I'm going to do is, as I'm reading each of the messages, run through this list for yourself and make a note of the people that you think, ooh, that actually could be a good relationship. So just getting some practice with that here. So the first one I'm going to read here is from Anthony, Smoothman Music Productions. We produce luxury live music and DJ entertainment. I love it. Just going to linger on that one for a moment so you can all think, does that business feel like something I could partner with? Okay, now I'm going to move on to Rotunda, Gambling Girls Fashion. I create and do graphic t-shirts and apparel. Awesome. So Rotunda, would that be like, let's see, graphic. So basically anybody who needs t-shirts, are you doing them commercially? Are you doing them for, individuals? Feel free to share more about that. But I think we have a pretty good sense of what you do from what you wrote. Raven, Inspiring and Empowering Lives, LLC. Raven says, I help women to redefine their money story and activate their best self. Awesome. So anybody who's got a target market of women, probably around that age, I'm guessing it could be anywhere could be in the 20s, could be 30s, 40s, 50s. We're probably looking at maybe a lot of people who are women middle age. So that's a target market that you all can tap into. Darren, I assist clients create, design, and produce 3D products. I think that might be as simple as saying, I create, design, and produce 3D products. And I think the words 3D products are probably what are going to jump out for people there. Let's see, Jessica, the Mansion at the Orchard. They own and operate a wedding and event venue in Bentonville. You also have on-site lodging. Awesome. Yeah, wedding and event venue kind of sums it up, doesn't it? So the on-site lodging piece is a fun additional one as well. Okay, let's see here. Sarah is saying, minus H2O Goodies LLC. I sell freeze-dried fruit and vegetables in short-term and prepper packaging. Okay, getting some really, really good, concise ones here. And I always challenge you, if you can find ways to make it even more concise, awesome. But these are, that's what we have so far. And hopefully we lingered on each just long enough where you could kind of run through these 4 different types of partners. And if anybody felt like maybe you found a possible partner, this is where it gets fun, right? Here we are. Message each other, right? If you're not able to, I don't know if you have the option of private messaging one person in the chat. If you don't, feel free to just say to somebody, find a way to connect. Know that if you do write any contact information in the chat, anybody who's on live right now can see it, but let's see what we can do here, or give each other a business name or a website link so that you can connect with each other afterwards. Why not use this as an opportunity to make a real connection with somebody so that that can come out of this for you? So I do hope you've sort of written down the name of anybody that you want to approach. And for the rest of this time, you can connect with people in the chat here to make sure that you have a next step for your conversation. But that does beg the question, how do you collaborate? You find somebody, what do you do? This is where a lot of people get stuck. It's like, maybe I could do something with that business. Sounds like a good fit, but I have no clue what to do. So how do I even begin the conversation? That's why I want to have this section in here. I want you to have some tools so that we remove that question and make sure that you have a way forward. And I love it. There are already some people connecting in the chat here. Beautiful. It's music to my ears. So what do you do? Okay, how do you build strong partnerships? Step 1, well, we're doing it. Know exactly who would be the right fit. Once you figured that out, step 2, propose your common business interests, but do it in a way that feels generic enough. So for example, if I said, I want to reach a volume of more people, women in this following age group. And you said, yeah, I can help you with that. And I said, what do you want? And you say, you know what? I really want an introduction to this specific person in this place. Can you help me get there? Right? 2 really different goals. We can't assume that everybody wants exactly the same thing here. So have some sort of a general objective that you bring into it. And if you both feel like, yeah, I think there's some way we can do that, now get tactical. Define what kind of support would actually make an impact. I do know that person, or I do know somebody like that. Okay, what's the best way for me to make the introduction for you? Okay, now you've got a plan for that. I can potentially help you get in front of my whole audience. I can do a blast about you in my newsletter or on social media. Great. Those are some tangible ways. So just keep taking it one step at a time. A lot of times, though, in the very first outreach that I'll do, I'll say to somebody, hey, I have this kind of business. Sometimes I have clients looking for businesses like yours. I'm looking for businesses that I can refer and who will refer me back. Do you want to sit down for coffee, get to know each other a little better? Like tell them the overall thing you're trying to get to, and then make the next step really simple. Like, let's get on the phone. Let's meet up. Then you can actually sit down and figure out, do you want to have a collaboration at all? And so look for steps like that. Now, what can partners do with each other? Well, first we've got this slide, and this is a reference sheet as well. So we've got a few buckets here. We've got the inform, promote, and collaborate buckets. In terms of informing, you can help find opportunities for your partners. They can't be in every room. You can't be in every room, but together you can cover more ground. So maybe you find an opportunity and you pass it along. Could be that you're hearing about what's coming up, current events that could impact an industry or specifically that partner, and you share that information with each other. It could be that you create something more formal, like we're actually going to sit down and talk business on a regular basis. Maybe there's a structure to that, like a mastermind. Maybe it is just more informal, but the idea is like, yeah, we're gonna touch base every so often to make sure we're both still moving forward and we have somebody to bounce ideas off of in different stages of our business. So informing is one aspect. Promoting is another one. So I would say the most complex way to work together in promotion would be like creating a co-branded event. We're both planning logistics. We're both bringing our audiences to it. Maybe you get a bunch of businesses involved. That would be the most complex version of this. The simplest version would be, okay, we'll advocate for each other. If I hear somebody say they're looking for a business like yours, I am going to mention you and I'm going to give them your website. Okay, that's great too. Much simpler. Now, I'm going to come back to, I'm going to put a little pin in cross-marketing and cross-advertising, because I've got a slide coming up that's going to give you a lot of ideas on that, but that fits into promote as well. And then collaborate. The most complex version of that, I would say, would be like having a joint offering. Like, okay, every time somebody needs or buys this thing from me, they probably need your thing too. So what are we doing to connect our clients? Whether or not there's an actual like purchase that goes in both directions, you can at the very least say, if you bought this, you probably also need this. Look, big companies like Amazon do that within their own website, right? So why not start building that network for your business to other small businesses? And so you can help in that same way. It's the same idea as like frequently purchased, or other customers also bought. Well, how can you invent that for your business? Shared expenses is another version of this. So if you both have this a line item in common in your budgets, well, maybe there's a way you can help each other with that. And then client education, if you said, okay, you know what, I bet a lot of my clients, it would be really useful to them to have information about what you do. Why don't you come in and talk to some of them, and I'll promote it and get some people there. Well, now everybody is benefited in some way. The business that's brought you in, they're showing value to their clients. The clients are getting that value, and you are meeting potential new clients for you. So there's all this, different way of looking at that. And I think at the end of the day, for me, what I love about partner marketing is that most types of marketing can involve collaboration. I like to say, whatever you're doing to market your business, you can do it better with a friend. So anywhere that you're getting in front of your audience is an opportunity for you to shout out another business. And anywhere they're getting in front of their audience is an opportunity to shout out yours. And so how can you look for those opportunities that already exist in your marketing plan? Now, I'm going to put up a slide on the next slide, and you're going to think, Melissa, you have some nerve. This many words on a slide. What are you thinking, Melissa? This is ridiculous. Blam. Okay. The promotional ideas slide. This is meant to be a takeaway. This is actually ideally almost a worksheet for you to work through with your potential partners, right? It's just an idea cloud of different buckets of types of cross promoting and cross advertising. And, you can sit down with somebody. You can say, what, we do want to connect and collaborate and find ways to help talk about each other's businesses. What are our options? You could bring a sheet like this into that forum with a highlighter or a pen, and you could just start saying, well, I do this and this and this already. I could shout you out there. They could do the same thing. Or you could decide something more complex that you want to take on together. And this, I'm sure you can find more options beyond this, but it's a starting point for the conversation so that you don't just stare at each other and say, well, we like the idea, we just don't know how to do it. This is your chance to start finding a tactical approach to shouting out other businesses and collaborating in a meaningful way. So hopefully that's a resource that will help you, especially because, and this has been so wonderful to watch, this really active chat of people connecting with each other. And, we, of the group, think about it, we have a small group here today, and we still have so many people finding possible relationships to build. Think about what that means for all the businesses you're going to meet over the next year, over the next, like the life of your business, right? There are this many people in this room, there's a lot of potential for partners for your businesses. So at the end of the day, I do want to save enough time for questions here. I just want to sort of close this out by saying, help your community to help you. All of this, look, none of this is hard to do. It does take time, and relationship building takes willingness to build a relationship. But if you do that, look how many options you have for expanding the reach of your business within your means without going past the resources that you have to spend on marketing. So I'd love to be able to address any questions that you're thinking of at this point, because I know I've done a lot of talking without giving you space for questions. So here's the things that we talked about to jog your memory. Go ahead and put questions into the chat. We talked about just generically the holidays in your marketing plan and how those things fit in. We talked about word of mouth marketing or referral marketing in a way that was more about connecting with your current network. Then we looked at the people who aren't in your current network, finding business allies for your business for partnership marketing. And then once you found them, we talked a bit about how to collaborate. Now, as we get any questions coming in, I do want to remind you, so we have this series of presentations will continue in 2023. And we have some dates on the calendar. I believe all of these are Tuesdays. And here's what's coming up. In January 24th, got Smart Principles of Marketing Messaging. Just what are some of the things that you want to achieve when you're coming up with how to market about what messages to send about your business. March 7th, how to win at social media. You're going to notice some of these are 1 hour, some of these are 1.5 hours. May 23rd, 20 ways to market your business. It's just going to give you a laundry list of different ideas to get you thinking about what your options are. We're going to do the Smart Principles of Marketing Messaging one again on June 13th. And then on July 11th, we have a 1.5 hour session on how to create a profitable marketing strategy. I love that one. It's really about customer retention, client retention, a lot of the stuff that we don't normally tackle in workshops. We'll be talking about it here. So those are some of the things that are coming up. I also wanted to mention, so on the next slide, I'm going to have that link to the landing page that I've created with the resources. These are a few of the ones on it. All of these are actually linked on that page as well. So we've got a few different blogs about partnership marketing for further reading and for further thinking about how to use that idea in your business. You'll be able to find all of those on this top link, which I'm going to get into the chat here in a moment. But I also wanted to point out the bottom link is a link for the ASB TDC. If you want to pursue booking some time with an advisor, I want to turn that one over to Scott to make sure he gives you any information you need about how to do that.
Yeah, so you guys can just go through our website that most of you have already been to, and in the top right hand corner, there's a link there that just says get a free consultation. And if you can just click that, you'll get a form that you'll fill out that'll go to our intake team, and they'll distribute that to the correct consultant, and then we'll get in touch with you, usually within a 24 hours. Sometimes it takes up to a couple of days, but it's real simple, just there on our website that most of you have already been to.
Perfect. That's awesome. Yeah, I think, you know, it's always a good time of year to connect with an advisor and think about what you can do to market your business. And, you know, as Scott mentioned earlier with his own bio, I mean, you do a lot more in the finance area, right? So the ASB can help you with all these different aspects of your business. It's really a one-stop shop.
Yeah, absolutely. We can help you with just about anything. And sometimes we can just be there to be a safe person for you, just to talk through your business ideas and get a second set of eyes on it, or we can just sit and listen as you process it. So just kind of whatever you need.
Yeah, I love that. And I really like this comment from Taylor because it puts a finer point on what we're really trying to talk about today. You know, it's so cool to learn about so many local and small businesses today. And that's the thing about the hyper-local businesses point. Like, there may be so many businesses around you. And if it's your mission to support hyper-local businesses that are really close to you, or any type of business, like women-owned businesses, like, well, whatever businesses you want to be able to support, you can be on the hunt for the businesses you want to partner with, and you can approach them. You can make a list of who you want to target so that you can support people with intention. And so just the fact that we have all these businesses here and you're all learning about the potential for ways you can support each other, and maybe you had never thought about it before. I can't tell you how often it happens. Like you go to I don't know, like a networking meeting, like, I don't know, like a Chamber of Commerce networking meeting once a month. I can't tell you how many times I've been in the middle of building a marketing plan with a client, and they'll say to me, and I'll say, oh, is there anything you're doing for regular networking? And they'll say, yeah, I go to this meeting once a month. And I'll say, great. You know, are there relationships coming from the meeting? What are you doing at that meeting? And they'll say, yeah, like, I eat muffins and then I leave. It's like, well, great. So you go every month, you eat some muffins, you hear a speaker, and you leave. But there are all these businesses in the room that you could potentially be making these meaningful relationships with. So if we can start tuning into that frequency for ourselves, if you start going around the world looking at how can I collaborate with people and who can I collaborate with, it makes you see everything so differently. And there ends up being a lot of opportunity that you might not have noticed before, but it was like right in front of your face. So I love that you're all, if you aren't already, I can see that people here today are expanding the way that they look at that right now. And I hope you bring it with you into every forum where you meet other people who can be a supporter for your business. So yeah, looks like we have I don't think we have any questions that have come in, but I'm happy to hang out for as long as you want to hang out, Scott.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Melissa. We really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and feel free to put those in the chat box, and we'll try to get to those now.
And thank you all for carving out time for this. I really appreciate it. And hopefully this is something that you can think of with enough time to leverage it for whatever your holiday season looks like. I know for some people, this is a really busy time of year. And if it is for you, thank you for making space for this on your calendar. And hopefully you'll be able to find a place in your calendar to do some of the work that we were talking about today that might take a bit more time. For those of you who have a business like mine, where things start to get quieter over the holidays, this is such a good time to just do as much outreach as possible. It tends to build a lot of momentum and goodwill for the year ahead. So it puts you in a pretty good position, and it may feel like something productive. Awesome. I love how people in the chat have really gotten to know each other. This makes me so happy. This is what we look for. But yeah, hopefully everybody here, if you do end up having follow-up questions that we don't get to address today, go ahead and talk with ASB TDC and book a time, get some good advice going that's specific to your business.
We'd love to have some time with you guys. Thank you again, Melissa. I don't see any questions in the chat box over on the side. So for any final thoughts, Melissa, please feel free. And then we will be finished with the webinar for today. Thank you all for being around today. Anything else,
Thank you all
Melissa?
so much. No, just make sure to take a look at the upcoming sessions. And, when we get into January, we have some really good ones coming up. So, hopefully you all can find more marketing content that you want to check into. And, good luck as the year wraps up, everybody.
Thank you all. Y'all have a good day. Okay, bye-bye.